Hey everybody, welcome to What's the Function? I'm your host, John Firth, and once again I'm joined by David Elkins.
Hello again, everyone.
And today we're going to talk about what's the function of MTR. Now, what is an MTR? First off, we're using a bunch of Microsoft alphabet soup.
One acronym after another. Is
One
there an
acronym.
for the acronyms yet?
I think they have a dictionary for the acronyms, but
that's amazing.
They actually do. And that being said, so what is an MTR?
So Microsoft Teams Room.
Thank you.
is your replacement for all of your conference room equipment and your conference room experiences. And it's more than just, a meeting space. It's a family of devices across many different manufacturers, a rigorous
certification process.
Yeah, very rigorous certification process. Sometimes that goes on for months and months, as we've seen with some of the devices we've tested here, and is an entirely integrated platform for not only managing your meetings inside, but also managing your meetings that you have with external people, because utilizing MTR when you have group calls to communicate with other parties is a large component of the experience for external people, especially during COVID.
Yeah, that was so. I guess let's reverse just a little bit here and talk about what was our experience with MTR. And we've been on this train for quite a while. For anybody who doesn't know, we were actually doing it when it was still like Skype room systems before it became
SRS.
It became Teams rooms, MTR, before it was even named that. And it was kind of insane to see the transition from Skype over to Teams and the advent of Android proliferating through all of these Microsoft devices, which is really interesting to say the least, because Android is, I think that there's almost as many Android devices out now for MTR.
Almost as many? There's more.
Yeah.
There's more. There's definitely more on the Android side.
Yeah.
Because it simply is easier to deploy Android to these niche devices that are in all these different form factors than it is to throw Windows onto them.
So let's talk about this. So there's two major types.
There's two sub-acronyms to the regular
acronym. There are two
sub-acronyms. MTRW and MTRA. MTR for Windows and Android.
Yes. And you can now manage all of this from a Pro portal.
Mm-hmm. Microsoft Teams Pro portal.
And you can manage it through Intune as well, and you can manage different aspects of things like software updates, hardware updates, like in the Android case of actually going in and doing the firmware. And
user experience, the default deployment. The Intune is going to allow you to manage devices at the OS level. So Android OS 9 and 12 are the most prolific versions of Android deployed with MTRW, and then with your Windows that is being deployed, and in most cases that's going to be 10 or 11. MTRW usually ends up being some sort of device in the room that is actually managing the system, and it's whatever you deploy to it, but 10 and 11 both work.
We recently just got a new feature, which is autopilot for MTRW. Right?
20 minutes to deploy MTRW to a room, update, configure, and be ready for a meeting.
And this is a huge change because before it was a very manual process to go through and do a deployment of MTR.
MTRW legitimately, did, and not with autopilot, not so much, requires an XML deployment. You have to edit the XML file that's in Skype settings.
And it's still Skype.
It's still Skype settings.xml.
Yeah.
And that is what dictates the actual meeting experience and all the configuration that happens.
And there is a GUI.
There is a GUI to do it. It does not have as many features, though.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. The GUI is missing quite a few of the features.
Quite a few of them. You still get a fair amount, both in Teams from Pro Portal and in the device configuration policy you set for your meetings in Teams and the device level in Teams. But the deployment through that XML still is the master. It has the most features for everything that you can configure.
But you have to be good with an XML, and you have to be familiar with getting the XML to work. And
I don't know, I'd say that. I mean, I figured it out.
I would hope, but giving yourself a little bit more credit, it's not common, and spaces matter. So that's something to really think about. Is XML was used a while ago, and you've seen it kind of phase out in most cases in favor of JSON or however you want to say it, right? So it's a little bit different. You're not gonna. It's not like an ARM template or something else that you maybe have deployed using Microsoft 365, unless you're old like me and you deployed Microsoft on the desktop using XML to be able to define out the package that you wanted. So
good old deployment tool.
Yeah, good old deployment tool, and then actually going through the XML. But so most people aren't going to be familiar with that. I think that the Pro Portal is going to deliver them the closest to that level of configuration outside of the XML document.
I would say that is fair. Most people aren't also not going to be all that familiar with the actual Teams admin center for being able to manage all of these policies in different settings.
And I actually don't think that the Teams admin center, so nobody kill me, does that great of a job in comparison to the Pro Portal. Once you're used to the Pro Portal, I think it's a much better experience.
I would say that that's probably a fair estimate. The Pro Portal is built from the ground up in order to be an interface that is there to configure and troubleshoot your different devices. One of the nice things is you don't need to be an admin to access it.
Yes.
You do not need admin, any sort of RBAC roles in order to be able to access Pro Portal.
You just have to be given access to the Pro Portal.
Yes.
Which is very nice because if we're being honest, there's not that much in there as far. You're not getting call logs or anything. You can, but
you're going to get meeting logs,
for
calls for meetings. You're going to get user experience for connectivity for both the internal and external parties.
But you're not going to like be able to drop in on a meeting and listen in or anything like that. And
there's no feature in Teams that actually allows you to do that.
Exactly.
You would have to have some sort of tool on the Windows device in order to be able to do that. It doesn't.
There's a way to build a bot to do it, but like you said, there's no like out of the box feature for this. I think the bigger thing the Pro Portal gives you is like if someone disconnects a HDMI cable, right,
or any device,
or it's unplugged off the network, you can set up alerting.
Because no one's ever done that, huh?
I would say that 90% of the issues with these rooms are that something's unplugged.
Something gets powered off.
Something gets powered off. Yeah, it hasn't been rebooted in 6 years. and I know I wish that I wasn't joking about that, but those are the typical things that we run into when we're talking about conference rooms. Now, the other major pivot, besides being able to have like a central location to manage all of this and be able to auto deploy it, which I think are amazing features, and if you need to quickly roll out meeting rooms, these can be huge. Like, let's say that you have a conference and you want to roll out 20 meeting rooms. This is a way to quickly roll out 20 meeting rooms. Or if you're doing a transition from Zoom to Teams or from WebEx to Teams or anything, then you can go through and quickly deploy and get these out. But what about when you're planning things and long-term planning? We used to see Crestron was a big name in the industry, and they would do everything, right? They'd have a Crestron panel at the front door, and that would show you your schedule, and then you'd walk in, and you'd be able to select what you wanted. Usually there'd be some touch panels
in the room.
Yeah, there would be a rack somewhere, right? And in that rack,
there's two of them. There's one in the meeting room, and then there's one in the switch room.
Yeah, because you have the central control unit, and then you have the individual control units for the different meeting rooms. So it was a much more complex setup, right? It was very on-premise or heavily based on on-premise technology. And when we got a hybrid deployment or starting to see hybrid come around, we started to notice a couple more things, which was like these smaller meeting rooms are what are mainly used. We don't see as many huge conference rooms that need this giant setup.
Yeah, the whole company's not getting pulled into a 40-man room for a meeting every day. Like in most cases, most people are sitting down in a huddle space, as they've been called, that's built for 5 people to sit in and have a discussion, and that will contain a meeting device, whether that's a tabletop device, something like the Owl that we've been seeing a lot of people pick up, or
we like the Smart Vision.
The Smart Vision from Yealink we've worked with extensively. That's pretty fun to use, even though I keep slapping people's hands when they touch it. And so stuff like that, or you just simply have one of the tiny bars, like the A20 from Yealink, or the Neat. What is the newest one that they put out?
Yeah, it's like the little pulse device. Yeah, they have an interesting product line coming out. Same thing with Logitech has an interesting product line.
Yeah, the Logitech Sight has a tabletop solution, or their Rally Bar, which is just, it's there, and the whole purpose of it is to give those huddle spaces a way to virtually connect to other meeting rooms, other meeting attendees.
And we've seen that with like a lot of the AI features that were before all of the large language model. We were seeing a huge advancement in AI features within Teams rooms to try to make hybrid feel more natural. And
something like IntelliFrame.
Yes, IntelliFrame is where I was going with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something like IntelliFrame going in and automatically cutting up your meeting feeds to show either the active meeting participants in a active
grid,
an active grid view, or just cutting up the people who are actively participating and speaking in that meeting. Like with IntelliFrame on the Smart Vision, it'll take that 360-degree camera feed and it will cut
each individual block.
Each individual block, cut 4 people out of it who are speaking and put them in a grid feed so that it looks like there's 4 individual cameras in the room focusing on those people.
And then you can tack in things like speaker recognition, which identifies your voice. You train teams for that. And now facial recognition to be able to actually detect the person that's in the room, match their voice. And you may ask, well, why do you need facial recognition and voice recognition? And it's because if you have a transcript, you need the voice cue to be there.
Yeah, you need attribution.
Yeah. And it'd be too hard to get an attribution only using like detection in the room, right? It could be wrong. This is a very a much more sophisticated solution, but a better solution at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you train all that. This is all voluntary. It's not automatically pulling your biometric data and creating a profile for
Correct.
You have to go into Teams, you have to go into settings, and you have to elect to do both facial and voice recognition for these features.
Really good point. Really good point that it is all optional. It's not something that you're forced into doing. And that's what a lot of the features in the Teams rooms are. There's a lot of options and a lot of customizations for the different rooms. So like we were saying, before I would go in and I would have a Crestron panel that would be a room scheduler, scheduling device. That's called a Teams panel now, and it works in a very similar manner by scheduling or allowing you to schedule. A recent feature that I love is QR codes directly on there.
QR codes directly from there. The hey, it's a one-shot look at if a room is available and when it's next either unavailable or will become available. The QR code for adding it in. The proximity
is really nice.
It's very nice because that's working over Bluetooth. There is some extra proximity detection coming for stuff outside of Bluetooth to allow you to communicate with your device directly to Teams room.
Yeah, there's some like NFR and some other stuff coming out.
Yeah, to allow it, because maybe you're in a very noisy, when it comes to signals, space, maybe Bluetooth doesn't always work or detect right, you're going to be able to do proximity detections because the two devices are able to talk to each other.
And what is a proximity detection for anybody who doesn't know?
So proximity is when you are close to a room physically. Like we have 3 conference rooms that are right next to each other here in our office. If you sit in one and you hit on your phone, which I don't have with me right now because I'm a bad IT, and you go in, you go to Teams, and you say join a meeting, it'll automatically prompt you with some option to say, join from this device, join with, speaker or with a headset, join from a nearby room, and it'll show you a list of the different places that it's physically able to communicate with by distance. So if you're sitting in one of our huddle rooms and you say join with a room and just pick the huddle room you're in, it'll command that room's MTR to join your meeting, and you don't actually need to join. And
then you can start getting things like room control features, sharing PowerPoint presentations directly from your phone. These are all features that are coming out or recently come out. And those are awesome. Like being able to control the room from your phone is a much better solution, especially if you're in a large conference room and you're up at the front of the conference room and the panel is at the middle or on the side or wherever you have your tab scheduler or whatever they're.
Yeah, kind of giving you the ability to just carry it with you. And then also the ability to simply drop in whatever content.
Yeah.
I think that's invaluable. If I don't need to bring my laptop in order to be able to do that, I can just go through my OneDrive and say, share this file with the Teams meeting.
Huge new feature.
I don't need a laptop. I don't need to do anything about it. I just bring it up and people are able to communicate about this document that I'm sharing to the meeting immediately from my phone.
And that's great if you're doing an all-in-person meeting too and you don't want to bring in laptops. So some of our meetings will just say, everybody close their laptop. We did at the engineering summit this year. We're like, everybody close your laptop. We're just going to talk and we're going to whiteboard and we're going to discuss. And sometimes you need to do that and you still need to show a PowerPoint presentation.
Yep.
But you want everybody to pay attention to that PowerPoint presentation. So this is an easy way to not even bring your laptop yourself. You just have your phone sitting there and just go through and do what you need to. Great feature, huge extension of Teams rooms directly to the person. And then the biggest thing that I think that we've used Teams rooms for is really just trying to make people feel connected. And designing our rooms specifically for that. So the huddle rooms are all designed so that you're looking kind of around this table where the TV is in the front, and nobody can sit there.
Yeah.
That was a huge design thing that we took into account. Is
no one's going to be sitting and showing the back of their head to
making
the camera.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to think about these things when you're designing the rooms, because if you don't, you're going to have a bad seat. And the goal is to make sure that you put the right technology with the right room. And
yeah, definitely look at the count and the range of these devices. We've had plenty of customers buy a smaller bar than recommended, and then everyone sits at the side of the table opposite the camera, and they're wondering, why can't it hear me? Why can't it pick me up? Why can't it see me? It's because some of these devices are limited because they're only supposed to be supporting 5 people 15 feet.
Yeah. Or some of them are, 12 people 50 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
and
they're purpose built for different sizes of rooms, different collections of people, and that you buy the right tool for the right job.
Yes. And in this case, that right tool will be recommended by us. And we generally recommend sticking to a singular platform. We have seen in our experience that when you add a bunch of platforms together, let's say a Logitech scheduler and maybe a different camera and maybe a secondary content camera, each one of these systems requires a bit of horsepower, processing power. And
they all have their own kind
driver
of
package almost that, like, it's an, I don't know, it's a driver package, but it's also an auto installer, and you have to have this in place to be able to stay up to date with Teams. So each one is going to have their own individual package. And in our experience, if you can get one setup, if you go with all Logitech from ground up, or you go with all Yelink from ground up, or all Neat or all Cisco, whatever.
Yeah, keep it to one brand.
Keep it to one brand inside that room. You typically have a better solution. The products typically work better together.
Correct. I do not recommend mixing devices unless...
Honestly,
the only time I would do that is if you have... if you're going to be talking camera, room control, speakers, all that needs to be one manufacturer.
And if you can't do all one manufacturer, like in the case of like using something like a bi-amp or something for overhead, then make sure that you've accounted for the additional compute that's needed.
Yep.
A lot of these devices that are MTRW come out and they're just Nooks, and they're underpowered. Maybe they have,
Go Intel Nooks.
They have an i3 or an i5, and they are running, maybe 8 gigs of RAM, and some I think that we've seen less than that, actually. So you get a bad experience on those devices. And we've just found that if you put more horsepower in the machine itself, if you're going the Windows route, then you have a much better experience. And that's just by nature of, or by virtue of, every single one of these products is going to have its own synchronization and its own software that's running in the background to communicate with Teams. And each one of those is a little bit taxing.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing saying that these devices won't work together, but in my experience, it feels like every time you introduce a new manufacturer to the group of devices you're using for a room, you're now getting an extra bottleneck, if that makes sense. You're not losing features or functionality because they're all able to utilize Teams, but that extra translation between how one manufacturer set up their device to communicate with Teams and the software needed to communicate with the hardware, that is another step in the translation process for everything to get up to Teams. And sometimes that doesn't work out as well as you would hope it does.
Yeah, I've seen good implementations and we've seen bad implementations. And after many years of like going back and forth and trying to figure this out, it basically just came down to, well, if we yank out that old process, like the CPU, whatever you want to call it, like the M-Core or the Nook or whatever product is the Windows-based box, if we yank that out and we put something with a lot more power in it, we see most of the issues go away.
Because it is bottlenecking. It is purpose-built to do exactly what it was purchased for. It is a Teams room management system.
Yes.
So it only is equipped with the hardware necessary to be at the maximal of a Teams meeting's consumption.
And a lot of these aren't even running full on Windows builds. They're running like a special IoT build of Windows.
Yeah.
So it's not even a regular. I mean, it feels pretty normal.
It feels normal, but there are some different components under the hood.
Yeah.
You are dealing with an IoT device instead of a regular Windows Enterprise or Windows Pro installed that you would normally have all the same features for. The updates aren't going to be the same. The feature sets aren't going to be the same. They're at surface level. If you simply log in and look at the desktop, it's going to look very similar. But there are some key differences into both the updates and treatment of that device by both Microsoft when it comes to updating Windows and with the manufacturers who are installing their software on there, because they build it for whatever software package is intended for, like a regular Windows install, and they're dealing with Windows IoT that doesn't always translate one-to-one.
Yeah, there's definitely certain things in the machine build that you have to opt into. Go with a higher processor, go with more RAM. And if you don't, what we have seen is that things like 4K video can actually overwhelm the machine and you get a shutdown. And it just literally, we've had Teams meetings just crash out. And you go back and you look and it's just because, we're running dual 4K streams coming out of this box and we turned off 4K and, there's enough RAM to handle this at 1080. So it was a simple fix, but we've actually told like multiple clients about this fix because they come to us and they say, hey, it keeps dropping in the middle of a meeting. Why? And it is lagging and doing these other things. And there's usually a solution in this case. There is.
There's resolution in that. Yeah. We've seen that for a couple of manufacturers where their camera is simply too well equipped for the equipment sitting behind it.
Yeah, the 4K cameras are just pumping too much.
Yep.
But
I mean, that's a device level for Teams rooms as they are. That's a Windows restriction that I've seen more than anything else. When it comes to MTRA and the all-in-one devices, those are about as solid as they can be for a device that is talking to multiple different platforms.
And it is also plug and play too, which is the nice thing.
Take it anywhere, plug it in. It works the same for your meeting bars like the A20s, Neat Pulse, the Rally Bar, as it does for the meeting boards, which we've seen a lot of people seem to show interest in. Now, the entry level to the meeting boards is obviously much higher than it takes to buy a meeting bar, but the board also kind of allows you to transform any space into a meeting room. It comes with a cart, you throw it on some wheels, and it simply
roll it around.
Go to wherever it needs to go.
We have 3 of them in the office, and
meeting boards,
4.
We have 4.
Yeah, and we use them a lot, actually. I love the whiteboard, and using the whiteboard feature built into MTR is really nice, and it translates directly over to your OneDrive. You just invite yourself and share the board over.
Exactly, because you're using Microsoft Whiteboard.
Because it's all built in.
Connects.
Yeah, so that's the other thing about this is if you're using the Microsoft platform for productivity, if you're using it for OneDrive and SharePoint and Voice, then Meetings is the last extension for that. And in some cases, Meetings has been the first dive into all of this, right? People needed to be able to jump out and jump into Teams really quickly or collaboration really quickly. So they did during COVID, and now they're in this and they haven't really deployed it all. And that's the last thing I'm going to touch on today is what has changed in 4 years, roughly 4 years, 2018, 2024.
Roughly 4. That was 6. 2018 to 2024.
Oh, yeah, wow. Time flies. So what has changed in the last 4 to 6 years since we've been doing MTR? And how much easier is it to deploy now? And what are the caveats that have kind of fallen away? Because there used to be all of these caveats, and now there's only a couple here or there.
Well, the management aspect of it is much better. It used to be that it was impossible to talk to these devices remotely and require hands-on. If you wanted to reboot the device, you would get someone on the phone, tell them where the power plug is, and they would power gap it, and there you go. Now with things like the Pro Portal and with Teams, you are able to do remote commands, and that used to not be a feature set that was available. Teams was meant to be the meeting experience, but it wasn't quite well equipped enough on the device side in order to be able to allow you to do remote administration.
Yeah.
But with things like Intune's Android policies and being able to enroll these devices in your MDM through Microsoft, it gives you a lot more access and a lot more feasibility for actually managing them.
Yeah.
On top of that, the meeting features available on Teams just as a platform have exploded.
Yeah, they've gone crazy. I mean, from the AI features to the productivity features with, being able to share and collaborate. It used to just be PowerPoint, to now being able to control the room from your phone.
And the ability to simply jump in and join with anyone. And I really want to call out to the collaboration feature, because not only does it do, active people on Teams, it'll allow you to call external people directly to their cell phone so you can add them in.
Yeah.
There's the meeting features for Teams for being able to do your audio conferencing in a conference bridge that allows people to use it. But also with most MTR devices, they're not locked into just using Teams as a platform.
Yes.
If you have, like with our own company, if you need to join a meeting for another company,
Zoom,
on a
WebEx,
different platform,
yeah.
Teams rooms devices are generally well equipped to do that, and that policy for you being able to integrate with Zoom and WebEx as an available option to be able to use from that device is a policy you just set in Teams.
Yeah, you just turn it on, that is a huge game changer, honestly, and it allows all of these devices to communicate really easily, except for Google. That's the only one that does not play nice with everybody else.
Oh, who uses Google Meet?
Anyway, thank you for joining me. I think we had a great talk about MTRW, and it looks forward, and MTRA for that matter. And I look forward to talking to you later, David.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.